How you doing? I'm Tony. Welcome aboard the Rambles. In today's video, we're going to try to answer this question. Which is a better value? This Lionel diesel from a ready-to-run set, or this, the new kid on the block, the Menards Beta 3.5 F-unit diesel? The answer might surprise you. It certainly surprised me. Stay tuned, you won't want to miss it. Before we get into it, please consider hitting that subscribe button. In just a few months, we got up over 8,000 views. It's incredible, and it's all thanks to you. So please come back, and I hope you enjoy my content. Now, let's answer the question. I understand this is not a fair fight. The Menards locomotives are still in beta. That means they're not yet finished, and there's a lot we don't know. For example, we don't know what the final price is going to be, nor do we know what the final set of features is going to be. So is it even worth asking the question how they compare to a Lionel? I think the answer to that is yes. For one, we can use this as an opportunity to compare Beta 2.0 to Beta 3.5. Next, we can try and figure out where in the market Menards is trying to go with this product. And finally, I think that they're far enough along in development that we can really discern how much value there is. Finally, I want to say that what Menards is trying to do here is commendable, and I think they should be supported. They're effectively starting a toy train company in the 2020s, and that's no small task. I have to ask myself, is this real life or is this fantasy?
The gutters I'm looking for? With over 58,000 items in stock, Menards has just what you need.
Menards has everything you need to help you get your project done. How about some donuts?
I love donuts.
So the unboxing experiences for both the Beta 2.0 and 3.5 were practically identical, with one major exception having to do with how many pieces the 2.0 arrived in. But we'll get to that later. With each of these locomotives, I did receive a free vehicle. A Penske truck came with the 2.0 and a pickup truck came with the 3.5. There seems to be some room for improvement with the packaging. It has styrofoam to protect the model and a bag on the inside, specifically for the paint. I say that there's room for improvement because many people are receiving these damaged. All things considered, these locomotives really weren't all that cheap. The 2.0 was priced at $160 about, but came to $183 after shipping and taxes. The 3.5 was priced at almost $170, but came to $195.72 after taxes, shipping to Pennsylvania, and some $4.20 processing fee. The plastic packaging is held together using a few stickers. Well, when I opened it, I did notice that this is considered the Menards Gold line. I don't know exactly what that means. I did reach out to them, but I haven't heard back yet. If you know what the Menards Gold line is, please let me know in the comments below. Now, taking it out of the bag, we get our first look at the paint. And I think that the paint job is okay for what you pay. There is some overspray, the graphics aren't necessarily all that crisp, and as I outline in a minute, this model had fingerprints in the paint. Let's get our first visual comparison between the 3.5 and the 2.0. The Beta 2.0 came to my house damaged, as I mentioned before. You can see here that the horns are in fact missing. Also, a pickup roller on the bottom was missing as well. I believe this happened in shipping, and that's why I said the packaging leaves something to be desired. I did try to put the horns back on top to varying levels of success. It seems as though the pieces may not have actually been manufactured to the correct specifications, or at least they were designed to stick out too high. This could be our first major difference between the two models. In fact, if you look at the image on the website, the horns stick up quite high on top of the cab, whereas with Beta 3.5, the horns are almost flush. According to my bendy ruler, this is longer than a foot. According to the website, it's 13 inches long. I have an exciting announcement. The Rambles has its first limited edition merch. May I present to you this, the Rambles microfiber towel. Supplies are extremely limited. In fact, the only way to get one is to say hi to me if you ever see me at a train show. Maybe I'll see you at the Allentown Spring Thaw. Now, what were we doing? Oh, right, this thing. Here, you can see the paint on the front is nothing special, like I'd mentioned. There's defects on the front as well as on the side, and you can get a very clear image of the fingerprints here. I actually think it's glue that may have gotten onto someone's fingers during the manufacturing process. You can see it got onto the windows as well. Now, this just might be the result of being in beta, as others have noticed similar fingerprints on their models. Underneath this locomotive, there are loads of details, and practically everything is die cast, even if it is very, very, very chrome. So between the 2.0 and 3.5, we noticed one difference, with the horns being slightly different heights, but a major question is whether or not these two models operate differently. The first thing I'm looking at is whether or not one is faster than the other. So I put both on the track separately, and I turned the throttle all the way up, let them do a few laps, and look to see who won. Some people say that Menards locomotives run better at a lower voltage. My layout utilizes two 180 watt power supplies that run at about 18 volts. Now, back to the race. It does appear that Beta 2 was faster, which may come into play with this next test. When you cut the power to the track and the train is moving, this is what happens. It stops right away. On their locomotive, Menards uses software to extend the stopping distance, giving the illusion of momentum. Beta 2 seems to take longer to stop, which makes sense if it's a faster locomotive. On the lowest setting, both locomotives travel at the same ridiculous speed. Next, why don't we check out whether we can run both of these at the same time using separate controllers. Generally speaking, a lot of the functionality is there, but you can see here I turn the dial all the way back on train 2 only for it to speed forward faster. Interestingly, if I blow the horn or I click the crew talk button, the locomotive does start performing correctly, but only when I have the button pressed. The reverse light turns on and everything. It's so strange. Back to the question at hand. Can you operate both locomotives simultaneously using two separate controllers? The answer to that question, I have no idea. It's technically feasible, but not that fun. Also, I don't know that these betas are all that different. I think it would be better if Menards issued a change log. However, this video isn't just about a Menards locomotive. This video compares a Menards locomotive to
a big, rugged Lionel. Lionel, the big train for small hands.
Another unboxing. Alright, I'll make it fast. We start by opening up the outer carton, which reveals a very nice looking ready to run set. Right away, we can see a difference in quality. The outside looks great, but let's keep going because they always say it's what's on the inside that counts. I'm struck by the size of this locomotive. I was expecting it to look more traditional, more toy-like, but no, it almost could pass for scale. Later on, I'll do a comparison. And then the paint looks great. Compared to Menards, this is impeccable. It's sharp and very well detailed. Digging down deeper, we find something else Menards was missing: a manual. Shortly, we'll do a comparison between both remote controls. Being that this is a ready-to-run set, there's of course a wall wart for power that plugs directly into the track. Lionel also included traction tires. I was presented with one more surprise in this unboxing, and that was the coaches. These passenger cars are surprisingly highly detailed, given that they're part of a ready-to-run set. The doors open and close. That's not only on the sides, but also in between the coaches. Even the paint on these passenger cars is really nice. It's a metallic silver that comes off really sharp. You could easily open these up and add passengers if you'd like. This is quite a bit of value for a ready-to-run set. Now given, these coaches are nowhere near scale size, so if that's something you're into, that's something to consider. Let's talk about price. This ready-to-run set typically costs about $350, but just before Christmas, this set was marked down to $209. With all of the taxes, shipping, and everything, I paid $221.56, only about $20 more than the Menards F unit. Even if you pay the full price, there's always the potential to sell everything but the Locomotive, and now you're talking about a real comparison. First up, does it creep? Yeah, it creeps. The Lionel is a total creeper. Compare that to the Menards. There's no comparison. Okay, so Lionel outperforms the Menards Beta at low speeds, but how is it at going fast? Lionel gets off the line first, but Menards catches up quickly and overtakes the Lionel. The Lionel LionChief actually has Bluetooth on board, and this lets you connect the train to your phone to set things like volume, momentum, and also a speed limit. You really can't do that with the Menards, unfortunately. But it does look like the Menards F unit is faster than the Lionel. So I called in some backup to help us with this next exercise. We are going to test the pulling power of these two locomotives. Thank you, Thomas, for helping out. You can go. I guess really I should thank my son for letting me borrow his train. We start off with the Lionel. We're going to pull a consist of 10 of my heaviest coaches. These are 21.5-inch Atlas O Comet 2 coaches. They each weigh over 2.5 pounds.
Wait, are you trying to measure your train with my food scale?
No? Well, maybe. That's more than 25 pounds of trains. The LionChief runs away with it, practically with no effort. Now that it's returning from its impressive voyage, we're going to try out the Menards Beta 2.0. Here it comes, blasting on the scene. At first, the Menards locomotive makes it look easy, pulling off as if it weren't having any trouble. But that does not last long. Once the Menards locomotive makes its way about 2/3 around the curve, it stalls. There's nothing I can do to dislodge it. I have to admit, I was surprised by this result. I was expecting this train to do a lot better. Cutting my losses, I took Beta 2 off the track and I tried Beta 3.5. It was the same story. The wheels just kept spinning and it wasn't going anywhere. I decided to call it quits before I damaged something. It was time to call Thomas back in. Okay, I have to come clean. Thomas is not really pulling these. I'm helping out at the tail end. But what is real is the damage I did to Beta 2. Actually, she's not really running anymore because of that test. The motor gives a high-pitched whine and it doesn't go anywhere. Also, in a portion I didn't videotape, the coupler failed, which is another issue. On the other hand, I did hit this with a crowbar, so that might have something to do with it, but I digress. Let's wrap up this rambles with a remote review. We have two remotes here. One of them is obviously better than the other. The Lionel remote is more ergonomic. The artwork seems to be either printed on or painted on, which is a really nice effect, especially when you compare it to the Menards remote. The Menards remote feels like it's a cheaper plastic. These printings scrape off very easily, and the remainder of the artwork is just stickers. If you add this all together, you really get a lower, inferior quality item. Moving on, a lot of people talk about the gears underneath the Menards locomotive. These gears are made either out of plastic or nylon, and a lot of folks have concerns about durability. Lionel, by contrast, uses metal gears underneath its train. Taking a look inside of the LionChief diesel, we see a circuit board with several subboards with really nice wire management. Alright, let's take a look inside of the Menards F unit. It has a larger, less impressive circuit board, but hey, it gets the job done. Before I hand things back over to me, why don't we take a look at these two locomotives next to the others I have in my collection. Here I have a Legacy A unit, and then I bring in the LionChief A unit. For me, the sizes seem very similar, and I think that's impressive. Okay, here they are all lined up. On the left we have a Rail King, and you can tell it's much smaller and looks much more toy-like than any of the other examples I have. This is what I was expecting for the Lionel, but I got much more. Which reminds me, if Lionel buys Rail King tooling, would that then make it Lion King tooling? Back over to you, me. Coming into this project, I had a confirmation bias. I wanted to get on here and show you how great this product is and how incredible I think Menards is for producing it. I was expecting to talk about how they're just going to disrupt the market and be a real competitor. Unfortunately, I just don't think they're quite there yet. And I have a big concern. I have a concern that many of these items are going to be destined for the dumpster just because of how low quality they are. So you have the low quality and, you know what, a somewhat expensive price at this point. It just seems like not a great combination. Now, I gotta say, Lionel is likely selling these either at a loss or at very slim margins. At one point, Mike Wolf said that he sold his ready-to-run sets and didn't make any money because he thought of them as his business card. And I imagine Lionel does something very similar. These ready-to-run sets are essentially the gateway drug into the hobby. You get your oval, you get your passenger cars, and then next thing you know, you want to get, you know, a turnout or whatever, and you expand your empire. So it's not really a fair comparison. It's apples and oranges. We'll have to see where Menards goes from here. And, you know, I look forward to supporting them in the future. I think that a lot of what they're doing is really great. But unfortunately, I just don't know that this product is quite there yet. And maybe that's why they're in beta. I don't know. Either way, thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed. Please consider hitting the like button and try to stay on the right track.